When you are indifferent, you degrade the other person. They're less important to you. They don't matter. Ultimately, what we feel in relationships is that we matter.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive in. You may be watching the show, but haven't taken a moment to click the subscribe button below. So if you've ever gained value from this show, it would mean so much to me if you click the subscribe button right now. And not only will this allow you to see these messages first, all this great content we have, you're gonna get notified first when it comes out. But the bigger our subscriber base grows, the more people we can impact and the bigger the guests we can get on this show as well. So again, thank you so much as always for your support. It means the world to me. Make sure to click the subscribe button below and let's dive into this conversation.
What are the challenges that come up over and over that you see?
So there's always three questions, right? What's a thriving relationship?
A thriving one.
Yeah. What can go wrong?
Uh-huh.
And how do you fix it?
Okay.
So you started with the middle question. What goes wrong?
Yes.
I think there's a number of things in a relationship that become the kind of cornerstones of the demise. Okay, and I'm not going to list them in order, but they all are part of each other. Indifference, and contempt, and neglect, and violence are probably the four most important.
Okay.
I'm not talking about big violence. Microaggressions are plenty. Indifference, when you start to feel like the other person fundamentally is not really caring about you anymore, or you don't care about them. What they feel, what they think, who they are, what they're about.
You just don't care. You've lost interest.
But it's more than losing of interest. It's also when you are indifferent, you degrade the other person. They're less important to you. They don't matter. And ultimately, what we feel in relationships is that we matter. That is the essential reason for connecting to people, is that we are creatures of meaning.
Right.
I matter to you. I'm someone. You care about me. You want my well-being. You're proud of me. You want good for me. You're benevolent. All of that. When you are indifferent, the whole thing goes. And then you start to, there's that coldness that creeps in, that sense of estrangement, that complete disconnect. That. The second one is neglect. Neglect, when people just basically take each other for granted. You know, they take more care of their car than of their partner.
Or their dog.
Anybody, anything. Their yard, anything. Anything gets attendance.
Their business.
Their business for sure. Their business for sure. You know, everything gets priority. Everything gets reviewed, evaluated, attended to, 360s, you name it. You know, new input. My God, it's like people have this idea that they put it all in when they were dating. And then once they seal the knot, it's like as if they tie the knot. It's like now they don't have to do squat anymore. And they go into this kind of complete sense of complacency and laziness. It's an amazing thing. They think this thing is just going to live on its own.
Right.
Like a cactus.
Right.
Violence, the abuse, the level of disrespect. I mean, most people talk nicer to anybody else than their partner when a relationship degrades. Because you can't get away with it. Because if you talk like this at work, you're gone. Because if you talk like this with the police, you're gone. Because if you talk like this on the street, you're being punched. But with your partner, you have that sense that they're going to be there anyway. They're just going to take it because it's family. And family is this thing that doesn't dissolve so easily. So you can just lash out at them and talk to them with a tone and a dismissal that is phenomenal. So that kind of violence. I'm not talking physical violence and all the other big things.
You're talking about aggression or resentment or
all of that. All of that. You know,
passive aggressiveness, all those things. Yeah.
All of that. And then contempt, I think, is the top one.
Yeah.
Contempt is the killer of them all. Because in the contempt, there is there's the degradation of the other. It's that complete, you're nothing. You're nothing. I can kill you with that one gaze, that one eyebrow that goes up, you know, who do you think you are? What are? And that's it. You're done. You're done.
So how do we even get to this place of these places?
After having been so in love and so romantic, right?
Is desire reflect that? Or if we're not desiring the person anymore, then we start to feel one of those categories? Or does that not play into
Look, the truth is this. There's only two relationships that resemble each other. The one you have with your parents or the people who raise you, and the one you have with the people you fall in love with. People can sit in my office all the time and say, I have this with no one else. I don't have this with anybody at work. Nobody among my friends ever thinks like that. You're the only one who speaks like this or thinks this about me or with whom I do this. No. You're the only one, and now we go back in history. And I'm sorry to be the psychologist, but that's really...
Right.
It is the place where we often learned about closeness, trust, loyalty, commitment, sharing, taking, receiving, asking, all these essential verbs of relationships. We learned that at home.
We also learned jealousy and all these other things.
Possessiveness, vengeance, you name them. The beauty
Anger.
and the not beauty.
Yeah, we saw it all as children, right? We saw the fights, we saw the love, we saw the,
we saw the coldness.
The lack of intimacy, the intimacy, yes.
Yes, and we bring that with us. And we often promise ourselves, I'll never be this one. I'll never be this way. I'll never talk like this. I'll, and we find ourselves often much closer to the apple.
And then resenting ourselves.
Apple to the tree.
We resent ourselves. We're like, how did we do that? Well, why did we get to this place?
And then we feel ashamed about it. And since we don't like to feel ashamed about it, we hide it. And one of the way we hide it is we blame the partner. That's just one of the ways. There's a lot. We are very resourceful in not owning our shit.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Wow, okay. And where does sex play into all this and desire?
So, I mean, one of the fascinating things for me in looking at sexuality is that it's probably one of the dimensions of relationship that has changed the most in a very, very short amount of time. For most of history, and in still the majority of the world, sex is for procreation. Sex is a marital duty on the part of the woman. Nobody cares particularly if she likes it and how she feels and if she wants it. And men have the privilege to go and find sex elsewhere. Wow. In a very short amount of time, we're talking 60 years, we have contraception, which is the liberation of women for the first time to free sex from reproduction, from mortality, from death in pregnancy and in childbirth, all of that. And for the first time, sexuality moves from just biology and a condition to a part of our identity and a lifestyle.
In 60 years.
In 60 years. The women's movement, which goes after the abuses of power. The gay movement, which introduces the concept of identity to sexuality. The fact that sex is for connection and pleasure. The fact that for the first time we have sex before marriage. And many times, a lot. We used to marry and have sex for the first time. Now we marry and we stop having sex with others. Okay?
Right.
Monogamy used to be one person for life. Now monogamy is one person at a time. And people go around telling you, I'm monogamous in all my relationships. And it makes perfect sense to them. Okay?
Sure.
All of that in a very short amount of time. The fact that I choose you to marry or to live together, doesn't matter, commitment, because I'm attracted to you. Because you give me butterflies in my stomach. And the fact that I think that if I don't have these butterflies anymore, maybe I don't love you anymore. And the fact that sexuality in long-term relationships is rooted in one thing only, desire. I feel like it. I want to. Not I have to. Not we want many kids. After 2 kids, the only reason to continue doing it with you is because we feel like it.
Right, it's
and
fun.
hopefully
it's
pleasurable. We connect. It feels good. It rounds up
Deepens
the
our
edge,
relationships,
the whole thing. That's it. And hopefully it's at the same time and for each other. Because plenty of desire continues, but it's not always at home.
Right, exactly.
So this is an amazing revolution. Sex that is
confusing
rooted,
all of us.
and how do we sustain it? So that's why I became fascinated in the nature of erotic desire and how do we sustain desire, because it is the first time ever that we have a grand experiment of the humankind where we want sex with one person in the long haul that is fun and connected and intimate and playful, and we live twice as long. Go figure.
Right, exactly. For 60 years, you're going to be with them or whatever it is. Yeah.
It's an amazing ideal.
So how do we navigate this? If we're going to choose one partner and be with them until, we're both gone, how do we navigate the challenge of keeping the desire continuously?
I think
both men and women, because the woman probably sees other men who are attracted to her and, vice versa. So it's like, how do both parties do this?
Look, we know that women get bored with monogamy much sooner than men.
Wow. Is this a fact or is this
That's research.
Okay.
That's not just fact. That is men's desire in long-term relationship goes down gradually. He actually is much more able to remain interested. And maybe just because he's interested in the experience itself and he has a partner there. Women's desire post-marriage plummets.
Wow.
And it's always been translated as, well, that's because women care less about sex. Rather than it's because women care less about the sex that they can have in their committed relationships, which is often not interesting enough for them. And it often has to do with the fact that the story, the character, the plot is not seductive. The romance, which is an essential ingredient of turn on for the woman, often disappears in the long-term relationship. It's like people look at each other at the end of the day and you want to fool around? You want to do it? You're up for it tonight? Now, this is not very much of a turn on for most women. And the idea that foreplay often starts at the end of the previous orgasm, and not 5 minutes before the real thing, which for her is not the real thing. The real thing is everything else.
So it's essentially the game.
Yes.
It's creating a game.
It's seduction. It's a plot. It's a coming close. It's a tease.
Mystery.
It's what animals call pacing. It's that I come to you, but I don't overwhelm you. I come just a little bit so that you can come a little bit toward me. And then I don't immediately answer. I actually go back a little bit too. Have you ever seen animals? They do this kind of pacing. And it is an essential playful ingredient of seduction and excitement. So women's desire plummets. But we interpret it as women are less interested in sex, rather than women are interested in probably just about the same kind of things that many men are. But women have always known what to choose above what turns them on, which was what gives them stability and security in their life.
Security, family, someone to protect, be there, right?
So what people do, look, we want one partner today to give us everything that involves stability and security and everything that involves playfulness and mystery. Okay, that's the grand ideal. Okay, I want to be cozy with you and I want to have an edge and I want you to surprise me and I want you to be familiar and I want you to give me continuity and I want you to give me novelty. That's it. As if it's right? And no Victoria's Secret is going to solve that.
Yeah.
Right? So then there becomes, what is desire? Desire is to own the wanting. If you ask people a question that goes like this, I turn myself off when? I turn myself off by. Not you turn me off when, and what turns me off is. You're going to hear I turn myself off when I do emails, when I spend too much time on the phone, when I overeat, when I don't exercise, when I have bad days at work, when I don't feel confident, when I numb myself, when I feel dead, when I don't feel thriving, when I'm not alive. You will really hear that it has very little to do with sex. And when you ask people, I turn myself on when or by, I awaken my desires. Not you turn me on when and what turns me on is, which is, i.e., you're responsible for my wanting.
Right.
What people will talk to you about is when I'm in nature, when I'm connected with my friends, when I get to do my sports, when I play music, when I listen to music. It's stuff that gives me pleasure, that is alive, that is vibrant, that is vital, that is erotic in the full sense of the word as life force.
Right.
And from that place, people remain interested in having sex with somebody else for the long haul. Not because they've scratched their arms for 2 seconds.
Right.
It's, I feel good about myself. The biggest turn on is confidence.
Right.
Confidence. You ask people, when do you find yourself most drawn to your partner? Every description has to do with when they're in their element, when they're on stage, when they're when they're doing their sport, when they are radiant, when they are in their studio, on the piano, on the horse, you name it. It's when they are in their element, i.e., they don't need me to take care of them.
They're not depressed and down and lonely and sad.
They're not needy. They don't need me, because desire is about wanting you. Love is also about needing you. Caretaking is a very powerful experience in love, and it is a very powerful anti-aphrodisiac.
So how do you experience love and desire at the same time?
You calibrate it.
So sometimes
it's the same as when you walk. You have to move from one foot to the other. A balance is not about staying on one side. A balance is the ability to see. Right now, we don't need caretaking. We can be mischievous, we can be naughty, we can be playful, we can break our own rules, we can stay home and not go to work at 8 o'clock.
Right.
And now we are in a playful zone. Now we are feeling that we are bringing our own little transgressions home. We are alive. We're not just being dutiful, responsible, good citizens.
Right.
It's that. It's very small.
Yeah.
You know, when I always think when I go and I see people at lunch and you see them talking and they're well dressed and they're awake and all, I think, who is here with their partner? Because you can see them, they're engaged, they're giving the best of themselves. That's erotic. No, the majority are not there with their partner. They're there with their friends, with their colleagues. Their partner is going to get the leftover when they come home at night.
Right.
Sorry, you know what? Forget the night date. Meet at lunch when you actually have energy. You know, when you and in the middle of the day like that, when you're awake, when you have something to offer. It's a very small thing, but they don't do it. They don't do it, and you say, why not? Why not? Why don't you stay an hour extra at home in the morning and not just because when you have a headache? And just say, this matters to me. All in all, you know, committed sex is premeditated sex. It's not just going to happen, because whatever is going to just happen already has. So you're going to make it happen because you say, we matter. We're important. Let's do this. Let's spend. Doesn't mean if you're going to make love or have sex. It just means we're going to take this hour and there's nothing else that matters in this moment, but just you and I to be together, to check in. And then we'll see what unfolds. That's the erotic space in which sex may happen, probably will, doesn't have to, but it is the place from which it is much more likely to emerge. But people don't do that. They do the responsibility, that's the love, right? The citizen, the commitment, the caretaking,
safe
the
thing,
burdens, the safe. And then they say, I'm bored. I would be too.
Oh, exactly. There's no mystery. There's no risk taking, right? Exactly, yeah.
There's no risk taking. That's the word. If you want desire, it's risk. And the risk is an emotional risk. It's not about sexy risks. It's really a risk on the emotional front, is that I bring something else to you differently from the way I typically present myself.
Sure.
You know, how can I do this? What can I do today that will be different from the ways that I've done it until now? How can I do something that I think would actually improve our relationship? Me. Right? Not something that I want or that you want, but that I think would be actually good for us, that third entity, the us. Right? And you check. Every time, you know, how often do you just go on the tried and trodden, as in, you know, it works. Sex that just works, for most people, is really not interesting enough.
Right. So,
what does it mean it works generally?
Right. What about the people listening who are saying, man, that sounds like a lot of work, that every day you have to change, do something different and unique and be...
Not every day. Not every day. Not every day. But what you can do every day is just a quick check with yourself. You know, is there something that I should notice? Is there something that I can be thankful for? Is there a little note that I could write? Is there, you know, just a way that I can show up? It's small. It's really small. Here's the thing. There is work, and then there is the creative work. You know, I'm talking about a level that is creative and that elevates you and that actually gives you, you feel taller. You just feel like you're engaged. You feel awake rather than this. This is the other seated position. It's comfortable. It's great, but nothing happens here.
Sure.
This is alert. Here's the essential word, is curiosity. When you're curious, you lean forward and you watch, you're open to the mysteries of life. This is, please don't bother me with anything, because I don't want any stimulation. I've had my share, I've been, you know. And this is the position that most people have at home. So when people say it's too much work, I basically say, look, you, if I was to say this in your business, would you say this is too much work?
Right.
Or you would say, that's very good advice. This is high rate consulting fees. You know?
Exactly.
It's like, excuse me, but you don't think for a minute that your business would thrive if you let it languish like that. Never. You have a reward system. You have incentives.
Bonuses.
You have bonuses. Yeah. But there is no incentivized system as in the private domain. So people just think, why bother?
Right.
And that's the difference, is that the ones who have good relationships are the ones who created their own internal incentivized system.
What are some of those incentive systems that you've seen over time that really work or are effective for long-term relationships?
I would say the first thing is almost one of the first things that our parents teach you. Please and thank you. Do you know how many people stop thanking their partners? Thank you. Thank you for doing this for me. Thank you for picking up the shirts. Thank you for,
making you feel appreciated.
Yes, appreciation. Appreciation is huge.
Yeah.
Gratitude, acknowledgement of the presence of the other in your life. Not, did you do this? Did you call? Did you pick up? Do this? Half the time.
Expectations.
Yeah. Of course, expectations is often a resentment in the make. It's like, with the expectation comes the fear of it's not going to. Thank person, first of all. And because it also makes it feel like this is not a given. Nobody owes you squat. You're not owed anything. You're not that important. You're actually quite replaceable.
Right.
Think of all the amazing things in life that are expressions of just you. For instance, the song you stream over and over again while you're in your 13th hour of gaming at 4 a.m. in the morning with all the lights off, trying not to wake up your roommates. Or the recommendations that you share with your friends on the top 6 comedy podcasts that are the best to listen to on your way to the gym and back. Or even your new haircut, which may or may not be an epic bowl cut from the 90s and hopefully is. Everything that makes you, you, makes all the difference. State Farm believes insurance should work the same way. Your plan, your coverage, they need to be personalized to you. And the ability to choose the plan you want by picking the options that fit you, like building your home and auto policies, is exactly what the State Farm Personal Price Plan is all about. Getting the coverage you want at an affordable price just for you. So, are you ready to make things personal? Call or go to statefarm.com today to create your State Farm Personal Price Plan. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer, availability, and eligibility may vary.
And with the divorce rate that we have...
what's the rate at right now?
About 50 on first and 65 on second.
65 on second, wow.
It's not good.
Right.
It's really, it costs a lot of money. It's not good for the health. I mean, it's just it's not good for the jobs. It's like... Okay, now you could say maybe people should marry, but it doesn't matter if it's marriage legally or... The idea is that we can do better. We can do better in general. I really think that the quality of our lives depends on the quality of our relationships. I mean, nobody's going to write, you worked 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week and no, they're going to say he was there for people when they needed to. He was there at every game. He was there at the party. He's the guy who, when you were in his presence, he had charisma, not because he could stand in front of a huge crowd, but he had charisma because when I was in his presence, he made me feel special. Mm-hmm. It's a different charisma. So appreciation, gratitude, thank you. Little things to go out of your way rather than just to do the minimum. A lot of people start to do the bare minimum just so that they can't be scolded. Right. Go an extra thing. On occasion, just do something for the other person just because it matters to them, even if you couldn't care less. Right. Rather than it's not important to me. I don't need this, or I don't care about this. Give each other a lot of individual space. Not everything needs to be shared. Mm-hmm. People have different passions, different interests, different friends, and they need those separate spaces to exist. Admiration, I think, is huge. Because admiration is also that you kind of really see the otherness of the other person. Don't try to make your partner into one person for everything. There is no such a person. Find multiple sources of connection, of intimacy, of friendship, so that you can have a group of people support you, and don't have one person who has to be there for you for everything, especially when you're in the dumpster. Mm-hmm.
We used to have a village of people to do that, and now we just expect one person to be the village, right?
Yes. Yeah. One person for the whole village. That is a unique. And then we're upset when they don't fulfill the mandate.
How many values in common do you need to have with your partner? life partner? Because
the important ones. It's not how many, but there are a few of them that are really important.
Which ones would you say that
I'll
make or break based on your experience?
I think I'm not going to say them in order of importance, but one of them that really matters is your relationship to others. If you are a person that values relationships, that sees the presence of others in your life as central, and you are with somebody who does not want community or does not know how, I mean, I'm talking not about what they would like to learn through you, but their value is you do things alone, you live alone, you rely on yourself, you don't bring people over to the house. I have a couple I just spoke with yesterday, and he loves to have people over, and nobody should come ever to the house.
She wants her space.
Her space,
alone,
the whole thing. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a tough one. It's not just about the house. It's his whole life is about being with people. And her whole life is about not being with people necessarily. That's not how she experiences them. Now the question is she drawn to more of what he has to offer? And is he drawn to more of what she... If these are totally...
more,
Then, okay, it's different values come together and they mix and match. But if you have these two separations like that, so that's one. One of the beautiful questions I ask in How Is Work is, were you raised for autonomy or were you raised for loyalty? Were you raised for self-reliance or were you raised for interdependence? Which one would you say?
For me, was that self-reliance mean what?
Nobody will ever help you as well as you can help yourself. You only have yourself to count on. Don't trust people. You're on your own, buddy.
Or raised for loyalty.
Interdependence, loyalty. You're never alone. There's people around you. You owe others. Others are there for you. Relationships is what makes you.
I think I was both. Based on like circumstances.
Correct.
Like
the circumstances made you reliable because you were alone with mom, but the messaging was, you have me.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think both.
I think that question is a fundamentally interesting question.
Okay.
That people can ask themselves when they partner in business and in love.
Raised for self-reliance or loyalty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interdependence. Do you see yourself as connected to others, and it's your connections that give you a sense of anchoring, meaning, relevance, importance, all of that? Or do you see yourself as fundamentally on your own? I think travel, curiosity, you often will have a complementarity between one person who is curious and eager to discover and goes on, and then another person. Your question about
wants to be alone or doesn't want to travel, wants to
doesn't want to, but it's also likes comfort, likes repetition, likes the familiar. I think the religious values. If you have a person who those matter a great deal. Children. Do you want family or do you not want family? If you want a family, then make sure that you find someone who wants a family. What are you going to do? Try to convince some, Now, I don't think you have to have the same values on everything. I think you have to have a similar outlook on life.
Which is?
A vision. Like exactly the same as a vision. Do you want to own a home? Do you think that economic achievement is important? Do you want to live in an extended family? You think that living intergenerationally really is important, and you have somebody else who says, I don't want your parents over.
Right.
Do you want to live in more than one place? I think these are essential, money, feelings or emotions, religious beliefs, attitude toward life. It's not a specific value about something. A value is a cluster of things. Yeah. It's a cluster of importance, of systems of meanings. That's a value.
And you may not find someone with everything is the same, but someone with a similar mindset, is what you're saying. An overall
I met
feeling.
a husband of mine, with whom I am for more than 3 decades, who had never left the US when I met him.
Really?
I never knew such a person existed. Coming from Europe, that was unheard of for us.
He lived in Europe?
No, he lived in the States.
Oh, he lived in the States.
He was American. Gotcha. I came from Europe. In Europe, you travel everywhere all the time, even if you have nothing. You work 1 month, you get the money, and then you go to the next country, which is 2 hours away.
Yeah.
I
traveled outside of the US.
He had never been outside of the US. Yeah, he will always tell me he'd been to the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
But, for the rest, and I thought, oh my God, how does one, who is such a person? But I knew it was because of the circumstances of his life, and that if he could, he would, and he was intensely curious. If you just said, oh, he's never traveled, then you misinterpret. You don't want to just look at the manifest thing of, you want to say, and behind this, is there someone who would actually like that, who just hasn't had the opportunity and is curious and just says, let's go. So don't get fooled just by what you see. Right. Find out what is the belief behind it, the aspiration, the longing, the interest, and then you get a sense of what is the value.
Do you think it's, I want to go back to expectation. Do you feel like we should lower or should diversify expectations, or what did you say the word was? Calibrate expectations, or should we be finding someone that can reach that expectation that we want?
No, I think
you think it's just impossible.
I think you need to calibrate.
Always calibrate too.
You
right?
Calibrate. You constantly will be disappointed. Do you know a single relationship where you haven't been disappointed?
No.
Okay. I mean, disappointment which can lead to suffering. Is part of a relationship. The minute you have a relationship, you have an expectation. That expectation means that you want something. Love, closeness, intimacy, partnership, business affiliation, you name it. Creates dependence. The moment you have an attachment, you have dependence. That dependence means that you have power, or I have power. If I expect something from you, I confer power on you. You have power over me, I have power over you. By definition, there will be moments when that power doesn't go in the direction that I want.
And I'll be disappointed.
Is there a single child that didn't have a disappointment from their parents? No. It doesn't exist.
Right.
This idyllic thing you're talking about, it doesn't exist. The next thing is, what do you do with that disappointment? Hey, can I come tell you? I'm really disappointed. You let me down. I thought we were in this together. I trusted you. And you say, I see your point. Or do you say, what the hell are you talking about? You're just inventing this. You're delusional. None of the, and everything in between. Yeah. That's how you do a relationship. It's really based on the repair. It's not based on the...
It's how we heal the disappointment.
Yes. It's how you repair all these breaches, moment by moment. You come back, and the repair is not, I'm so sorry. The repair may sometimes be, hey, do you want a glass of water? Right. Or, hey, did you see this article in the newspaper? John Gottman has this very interesting thing about that. He says the repair is not that you come and you do a mea culpa. It's that you do what he calls bids for connection. You show the other that they still matter. I brought a newspaper in. At a time when we still had newspapers. That was one of his examples. I brought a paper in. Like, I think of you. I'm pissed at you. You just annoyed me. We just had a spat. But you still...
I still care about you.
I still care. You're still in my life.
I still respect you. So it's how we repair disappointment on a daily or weekly or monthly basis.
Minute sometimes.
Is the success of the relationship.
And that means also how you come and you say, you take responsibility. Yes, right. I actually think that taking responsibility is the ultimate freedom.
Really?
I messed up. I shouldn't have done this. Can I do that? It really is being accountable.
Mm-hmm. What if
instead of blaming the other?
What if it actually in that moment wasn't your fault?
Doesn't matter. It wasn't. You don't have to agree with anything. I didn't mean to. It wasn't my intention.
Yeah.
We are going to slip a lot. Right. But it's about just saying it. And for that, it's about saying it. And for that, you have to be able to see that you're a flawed person who can be accountable without that becoming a major source of shame and I'm terrible. It's a different thing between saying I messed up and I messed up.
I like this distinction. How do we, in our mind, because I think in the past, relationships when I messed up in a small term, right? Like a disappointment, a small disappointment. Saying like I'm sorry, or taking responsibility, or saying, you know what, that was my fault.
Was like a humiliation.
Well, it was more like, look at it when I'm like, well,
why shall I?
No, it's more like, here's all the actions I'm doing right.
Right.
Today I've done this, which was an expectation, and I've done that, and I took the trash out or whatever. And I, did something kind for you, and I wrote a note, and I did this, and I took us to dinner, and I did all these things well today, but I messed up on this one thing. So for me, I used to say to myself, like, gosh, but can't you see the whole picture of like all the good things I'm doing? Why do I need to be an hour conversation about like one small thing? That's what I used to feel like. And do you feel like we should just be saying, you know what, take responsibility anyways for those moments, even if you're doing lots of good things? You know what I mean?
Yes, but
I'm not a perfect human being. It's like, I might slip.
The story is told by you.
Yes.
The other person is the one that needs to tell you about all the good things that you've done. So if you felt, I do all of this, I do one thing wrong, and now I have to go into the dark pit.
Yes.
But that's because you had a partner who did not enough tell you about all the good things you did.
So this was about me.
If you are in a relationship, you need that other person to acknowledge all of the positive stuff, so that when you have to say something about the moment that you messed up, you don't feel like, this is an endless chore.
Well, I think, exactly. Or I think it's more like, okay, if you're going to acknowledge one thing that I didn't do, at least acknowledge something of the things I did do, right?
It's not at least, it's a must.
It's a must.
It's a must.
It's not bad if I shouldn't be needing that, or I shouldn't be.
You should need it.
I should need it.
You should need it. You totally should need it.
Gotcha. Don't only acknowledge the bad, also acknowledge the good.
Not also. It's a must. It's a mandate. What happens sometimes in distressed relationships, because you were in a distressed relationship at that moment. Yes. And this is true. You can directly take this into the workplace. In a distressed relationship, the tendency is to highlight the negative and disregard the positive. Right. The positive is just a given. The negative will make a big deal out of it. So the one thing you didn't do becomes the whole conversation. And then what does that person do? Of course, that person says, but you disregard all the other stuff. Yeah. And rightly so, because it has been disregarded. In a distressed relationship, the positive, if we get there on time, it's because there was no traffic. And if we get there late, it's because of you. The good is chance, the bad is attributed to you. Or in a different version of that is what we call negative attribution error. If I am in a bad mood, it's because I had a bad day. But if you're in a bad mood, it's because you're a nasty person who is always so cantankerous. Right. Mine is circumstantial, yours is characterological. So when you'd say, I was in a relationship in which when I did one thing bad, it was so overblown and I felt like everything else was being disregarded, that's a sign of a distressed relationship. In and of itself.
Interesting.
The fact that because in a normal relationship, somebody else says, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Then you finally don't do something and says, oh, I really messed up there. I forgot. Sorry. Right. And it's not such a big deal. Okay. Because you are seen for the whole person. Right. If you have to make a speech about you should see the whole person, you're not in a good relationship. Ah,
there you go. Okay.
Or you're not in the dynamic in your relationship is not a good one. Yeah. No, that's that in itself is a sign of a bad dynamic.
Gotcha.
You shouldn't have to say this.
So I wasn't crazy. Okay, gotcha.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No. And the interesting thing about this is how much it applies at home, and the same thing happens at work.
And at work. So is it a mandate to acknowledge team members at work as well, in the good and not just the negative?
I absolutely think so. Yeah. But I am not the best at it myself.
Right. So you don't acknowledge your team the best.
I do.
It's hard. When we're running the show, we see a lot of the things that are slipping through, right?
Yeah. It's like my tendency is to...
but it's different because in a relationship, it's not a paycheck, right? It's like, well, maybe there is, but it's different in terms of like an intimate relationship versus a working relationship.
How much has your team taught you? Because look, you are probably like me. We wouldn't be sitting here on some level if we were not actually more self-critical people.
Of course.
And very demanding of ourselves.
Of course.
And hence, we surround ourselves by people who we think we can be demanding from as well. And that is true. But it is also important that we learn to be sometimes a little kinder with ourselves and not just highlight the negative.
I know.
While at the same time asking the girlfriend to not be like that, even though you are doing it with yourself. And to also do it with our team.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go wrong.
Before the interview continues, if you feel like you're not living your most authentic life, not leaning into your purpose, and not living the life that your future self would be extremely proud of, I've written a new book called The Greatness Mindset, and I think you're gonna love this. Through powerful stories, science-backed strategies, and step-by-step guidance, The Greatness Mindset will help you overcome all the different challenges in your life to design the life of your dreams and then turn it into your reality. Make sure to click the link below in the description to get your copy today. Okay, let's get back to this video.
When you have been through, as you date and you go through relationships and you've been through betrayal and heartbreak and hurt and pain, you can become pretty cynical about love. And if you're not careful, that cynicism can really be a hindrance for you, because you cannot be a cynic about love and expect to attract it at the same time.
Ooh, snap. That's true.
Yeah.
So how did you keep your heart open after going through breakups and maybe after, challenging things happening in relationships where that hurt you? How did you stay open to love?
I had to reframe my thoughts and ideas and my perspective about the past.
What did you think about them then?
I had to learn to allow the past to stay in the past. I didn't want someone to come into my life and I make them pay for something they had nothing to do with.
Yeah, that's tough.
In my past.
Yeah, that's tough.
And when I got married, who did I want my husband to meet? This bitter, broken down woman who had been through the ringer in all these years and all these relationships? Or did I want him to meet someone who, because we're always in the process of healing. We're always in the process of growth and our emotional health. But did I want him to meet someone who was committed to that growth and that process, and going forward, being committed to the same commitment, which is what really success in marriage boils down to, being committed to the same commitment. Because, when I was younger, I thought it was about this involuntary feeling of love. And then as I got older, I realized it was a conscious decision to love.
It's not just, I have this attraction to this person, I feel love towards them. It's a conscious decision.
Because you're not always going to feel love. Right. You're going to go through ups and downs and peaks and valleys. And if it were about a feeling, you'd be all over the place emotionally.
Up and down, yeah.
It's about a decision. And so when I talked about separating your feelings from the facts, that's what I mean. Like you're going to have a range of emotions, but the fact is, this is a person that I've committed my life to.
Yeah.
This is a person that I've committed to grow with. So I made all of these commitments to this person, and then you go forward with that in mind.
Did you have fears around getting married?
I had a fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
What is marriage really like? I see other people who are married, some of them happy, some of them not. Obviously, I see a lot of people getting divorced. So what is it about marriage? What makes it work? Do I know what makes it work? Do I have what it takes to make it work? So it was the fear of the unknown, because I hadn't done it before. Marriage by nature changes you. It's the closest relationship you'll ever have. It's very different from the parent-child relationship, every other relationship.
Friends, everything, yeah.
I wondered how it would change me.
From being in a relationship and dating to then being married, what have been the biggest differences and changes?
Allowing someone to see me at my most vulnerable state.
Ooh. Did you allow that during the dating process?
I allowed it to a certain extent, but I didn't live with my husband before we got married. That was a choice that we made.
Really?
We did not want to live together. And so when we got married and we moved in together, I had not lived with anyone since I was in college for 20 years.
Wow.
So again, it's that adjustment in life, just sharing my space with another human being every day.
You got married.
And how to handle that.
Yeah, and you got married a week before the pandemic in 2020.
Yes.
March 8th, 2020.
Yes.
You said. So what was that? I mean, that takes a lot of guts to not live with someone beforehand in the modern world, to not fully see the person who they are. So I commend you on that. So what did you learn going through a pandemic for the last 2 years, getting married a week before, and then moving in together and sharing a life during, arguably one of the scariest, uncertain times in the last 20, 30 years?
Everything changed in the blink of an eye. We got married on March 8th in Los Angeles. Big wedding, all of our family, all of our friends, hugging, high-fiving, kissing. Had no idea what was about to happen a week later. And I do look back on that day because I thought, when we were talking about our wedding, do we want to do something small? Do we want to, we ended up just inviting our people and everyone came out. And now I look back on that day and I cherish it so much.
Yeah, because people haven't been able to do that for a couple of years.
Right. And I haven't seen a lot of those people since. So it just made those memories even more special to us. But also, yes, a week later, the world shut down. So we decided to take a mini moon. We were going to do a big honeymoon over the summer. So we just went to Newport Beach and we were there for a few days and we were in a bubble. We didn't know a lot about everything that was happening in the world until we came out of this bubble. So we came back to LA and I mean, there was no toilet tissue on the shelves,
Right.
the grocery store. I mean, it was just empty. Everything was empty. I'd never seen anything like it before. And I was like, oh, so you mean to tell me I waited all this time to get married and the world is about to end?
Wow.
It was crazy.
So what did you guys create? Did you guys come together and say, let's build a strong foundation during this time?
Yes.
Do you feel like it's made the relationship stronger?
Yeah, absolutely.
Has it been a stressful living with someone for the first time in 20 years? How have you navigated it all?
We adapted really well. And during that time, we had every day and all that time to spend time together. And the pandemic, it challenged all of us in different ways, but it also presented us with an opportunity. And for us, it was noise cancellation headphones through the first few months of our marriage, because we got to really sit and be together and be still and be quiet. My husband is an R&B singer. He travels all over the world. And he was leaving a week after we got married to start traveling again.
Not
of
anymore.
course, that didn't happen. And so we got to spend a lot of quality time together. And I will tell you what I learned about him.
Yes.
What I talked about earlier, about when you see the true measure of a person and how they handle adversity and how they handle difficult circumstances. And because all of his, live music was impacted greatly.
That's how you make most of your money. Yeah.
And I never heard him complain, not even once. And I saw him be a source of encouragement to a lot of other of his artist and musician friends. And I mean, I was even shocked. I was like, okay, we're all about positivity and wake up happy every day. But really? You really wake up this happy every day?
Sure.
And it was inspiring to see. And I knew in those first few months that, because you always, love is about taking a risk.
Yeah.
We talk about that fear because it's a risk. There's a fear of being hurt again. There's a fear of those triggers being exposed again. And in that moment, I knew and I believed that I had made a right decision. But in those months after the pandemic, I saw it for myself very early on in my marriage, who my husband was in stressful times, in difficult circumstances, and how he was a source of inspiration and strength for a lot of people, including me.
So was each day kind of a confirmation that this was a great decision?
Yes.
And I leaned into this, and
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Yes. It's been 2 years of just this amazing time in my life, because I used to get asked a lot why I was still single for so long. And I started to feel pressure from people. I never put the pressure on myself, and I know a lot of people perhaps do, but if you're not careful when you're single and people are asking you, well, I don't understand, why aren't you married, or what's going on? You can start to internalize it and feel that there's something wrong with you, or that there's something off within you. And it can almost be something that you become embarrassed by, because people are asking you as if you've missed some mark in your life, some milestone that you should have achieved by now. Not asking me if it was a desire of mine, by the way, if I wanted to, but just asking me, why wasn't I? And
why do you think people care so much about other people being in a relationship or being single?
Well, the question, I think, speaks more to who they are than it ever did to who I was, because I was okay. You know, there were lessons that I had to learn to get to the place where I could go into a successful marriage. I needed to learn those lessons. There are almost 8 billion people on this planet. We can't all be doing the same things at the same time, and we're not supposed to be. We're all supposed to be living our individual life paths and our individual life journeys. There are some people who don't think that. They think you need to be married by a certain age, you need to have children by a certain age, or you're not living the right path. It's just not true. This is not a race. Why is it not a race? Because we're not all running in the same direction. So I learned very early on, and I think living in New York actually helped with that, because I was around so many other young professionals who were, at the top of their games in their careers. And we were, Saturday night we're here, Wednesday night we're at a show, and the live music and everything, and just embracing our full lives and accepting that being single was not a rest stop for me until I met my husband and really got to live. Well, if I had done that, I wouldn't have lived until I was 42 years old. So what would I have done with all those years in my 20s and 30s? So it wasn't a rest stop. And I embraced that time and just did so many. I traveled all around the world by myself, solo. Went to all the restaurants that I wanted to go to, watching Sex in the City. Sometimes I would go by myself. I had this vibrant group of friends. I was not waiting to live my life. And I think that people, they project their own view of what they think life should be onto you. And so it's our job as individuals to, again, reframe our perspective and mindset and make a decision for ourselves that we're going to live our own life path.
I should be asking, is this relationship worth it? Instead of, is this relationship perfect? And I was asking myself, because I've seen Instagram relationships so long, I've never had one, and I've seen movies and everything else. I thought any sort of issue within a relationship was fatal. And I'll be honest with you, what the issue was. We had a problem in bed. And I've never encountered that before. And I think it's emasculating for a guy when your partner might not have the same interest in sex as you do.
Interesting.
I think I was emasculated by it. I think I didn't understand it. And she, probably because I wasn't creating a safe space, she did not want to talk about it.
Right.
And for me, that felt at the time like a dead end. Like you've hit, like going through a maze and you hit a cul-de-sac, as we call it, like a dead end.
What would a safe space have looked like for you to create?
Just to, honestly, to ask some very thoughtful, unloaded questions and to listen.
You weren't willing to do that? You just didn't have the tools or the awareness?
I did not have the tools. I didn't know how to communicate. And communication is foundational to everything. It turns out most of the time, as I've seen in my life, whether it was when I dropped out of university, my mum didn't speak to me for 3 years, whether it's my business partner becoming an alcoholic and only finding out when he was downstairs lying on the floor as a drunk, or whether it's in that situation, that we tend to all want the same thing, but we don't have the tools to communicate, so it sounds like we're pulling in different directions. And I think in that situation, again, it was one of the moments in my life where I learned the importance of mature communication and creating a safe space and understanding that what someone self-prescribes as their issue is not necessarily their issue. And sometimes people don't know what their challenge is.
Right.
So someone might say to you, I don't like sex. And for you, that, again, it feels really binary. It's like, well, you either like it or you don't, and you're not willing to talk about it, so it's over. But things, as I learned in this case, are often much more deep and complex. And sometimes people can't self-diagnose what's going on with them. But if you create a safe space together, you can go on the journey to understand what that actually means. I wasn't willing to, so broke up with her.
Wow.
I'm back with her now.
Well, it's the same relationship.
The same relationship.
It's her.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. I thought this was a new
and
relationship.
I'll 100% marry her. And then she'll 100% be my wife because I mean, I've never met a person like her, but.
Wow, so this is that relationship then, and you ended it. How long did you end it for?
A year.
Come on.
Yeah, I ended it for a year.
Were you in touch at all? Was a little conversation?
Not really. So the pandemic happened and she had some troubles in her life that she wanted to go and figure out. So she flew to Indonesia, she flew to Bali, and the longer the time went on and the more time I had on my own, and I'll be honest with you, the more time I had to try all the wrong things and have them fail me.
Right. You were like, okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that was the one.
Oh, wow.
That was the one. And I became surer and surer as the days went on that I would never find a love like that. I would never. And I was sure of it. I was utterly convinced I had made a mistake and that I was the problem. And although I didn't know the issue we had in our relationship would be fixed, I went to the airport, got on a flight, and I flew 22 hours to Indonesia to more than anything apologize.
Wow.
Because I felt like I threw a good thing away for a bad reason. And I know I hurt her. And I knew that even though I didn't think she would be interested in me or take me back or anything like that, I knew that if I am to be the mature person I am, my apology, if it's not manipulation, should come without an expectation.
Right.
You see what I mean? Because when apologies come with an expectation, they are just manipulation. So I thought you just actually have to go there and say what you mean and leave it there and then come back.
Not try to get in a relationship with her, but just do it for the sake of you being a good person.
Yeah, exactly.
And owning up to your part of the street. And then...
Because then I could have another relationship with someone else and start the record personally in myself that I am now the mature person who's willing to communicate and be humble and admit his own deficiencies. So I could then be the person I wanted to be for the next person. And it just ended up being a very, probably one of the most interesting moments of my life, how that situation played out. Because I got there, she was being very distant with me.
Did she know you were coming? Did you
last
tell
minute,
her
last minute. So when I was in the Doha airport, I said, oh, by the way, I'm going to be in Bali, so it'd be nice to see you. She was very distant with me. She wouldn't come near me. She was like sat quite far away from me when we met with some friends. And then as the days went on, she said, look, I don't know what the future holds. I'm staying here. And I could see it. So I apologized to her anyway. Then on the next day, by the way, that was an ego blow. That was a moment where my chimp brain showed up and said, take revenge, play a game, try and get her back. But fortunately, by this time in my life, the other part of me that knew I had self-sabotaged myself with my ego for years, and that the games had always failed me. Manipulating someone has always failed me. Abandoning my character and integrity has always failed me.
The chase and then...
All of that had always failed me. So in that moment when she said, I'm going to stay here in Bali, super graceful and nice, thankfully. I see all of these things like a balancing act, and it's like, which force will win? You don't have to be 100%. Mature, but if you're 60-40 and that's the words that come out your mouth, that's a good place to start. And fortunately, in that moment, my maturity won. The next thing is she sits me down the next day and goes, I've been sleeping with someone since we broke up.
Zing!
And I'm
now let's see where that pressure, how are you going to show up with that
the
pressure?
Scales. And again, my chimp shows up, it says, finish her.
My gosh.
It says, manipulate, games, tell her off, make her feel like shit.
Oh, wow.
That's my ego. It goes, go on, Steve. But fortunately,
what'd you do?
I gave
hard.
her a kiss on the cheek. I was like, I understand. And we're in a co-working thing. We carried on doing our work. But by the way, at this point, we're not romantic. So we're not...
Right.
I'm just, babe, it's okay. Give me a hug. Thank you for telling me. You didn't have to tell me. And I literally looked her in the eye. And I remember saying to her, she'll listen to this. I was like, I know that must have been hard to say to me. So thank you because you've told me. You didn't have to tell me, but you've told me because X, Y, and Z. We carried on working. That day, tough. Yeah. Next day, this is where...
But you ended it with her. It's been a year. What's she going to do?
Yeah, exactly. But your ego doesn't care.
Yeah, of course.
Your ego doesn't care if you ended it, if it was your fault. Your ego gets triggered, especially, I think this is quite a masculine thing from what I've read as well. We get triggered in a different psychological way because of various prehistoric reasons, which I won't go into. And then the last thing was, I realized that she was going to stay here. She wasn't interested in me, so I was going to leave. And I sent her this really wonderful message and a voice note, which I've played before publicly on stage. And I said, I'm leaving Bali on Saturday, but listen, you're on your journey. It's been amazing to see you, etc., etc. She responds and she says, she's surprised, but she says, okay. Can I see you before you go? My ego shows up. Don't let her see you before you go. That's your last chance of getting a victory.
Oh, no.
Do not let her see. Make her feel bad. Play a game.
Oh, man.
You've got the power there, Steve. She's giving you...
She wants something.
Yeah.
You take it away from her.
You have to take it away from her. That's one last ego-restoring victory. And then reflection, asking myself who I am and who I want to be, what my values actually are, and what has succeeded and failed me in the past. I said, sure, you can see me before I go. And in those 3 days, everything changed.
What happened?
She made plans for us over those 3 days. It was like, and I'm not sure if this is a karmic thing or a spiritual thing or whatever it is, but it was like she realized I'd finally learned how to love her. And it was like life had sent me these 3 tests to check. If I still had that ego, if I was still immature, if I was willing to hold a safe space. And because I passed those 3 tests, those last 3 days, everything changed. And we have been wildly in love ever since, to the point where I'm sure she's my wife. I'm sure we're going to have kids. I could have ruined that on 3 occasions. There was 3 challenges life sent me.
She was testing you, whether she was thinking of a test or not.
She would never think of it.
Right.
She's too pure. She's too authentic.
It's the human experience to say, well, I don't fully trust this. Okay, I'm going to... Maybe not thinking, but it's just the body's response probably.
Yeah.
It just comes out.
It taught me something about the nature of the world.
And she would know if you would have reacted differently in any of those 3, she'd have been like, something's not safe here. Like, she would have not trusted you to be able to want to get back in a relationship.
But is the world not doing that to all of us in all facets of our life?
Of course.
Is it not sending us tests, whether it's the barista who you might be rude to that day that turns out to be the daughter of the person that you end up going and trying to pitch business to in 3 years' time? Is life not testing us at all times to see what we're ready for and what we deserve? And that's kind of the broader picture lesson I learned, was like, Mel never had to change. In fact, nothing externally needed to change for me to get the results I'd always been looking for in my life. I had to change. And then the world sent me things, and this sounds very woo-woo, and I'm the least woo-woo person you'll ever meet. The world sent me a different set of things. It said, because you've changed, we're going to mirror a different set of results. It's that old Einstein quote about doing the same thing and expecting different results. Yes. You've taught me this as well, because if you have a huge amount of self-responsibility when it comes to your relationships, you say, I did that. I said this to you last time we spoke. When you're talking about your past relationships that have failed, you said, but that's on me. And you say, because I picked them. And I think about that so much, because I had my hairdresser come to my place in LA the other day, and he walks in, starts cutting my hair, says, my girlfriend, she's not really interested in me. She's been talking to a lot of other guys, and she's been going for this guy just because he's got money. And he walked in, and when he walked in, he had this $2,000 sneakers on, a Louis Vuitton bag, dripping in diamonds and gold. And I thought, you've got what you deserve. And people hate that. The concept that the people that they've attracted into their life, the results they've attracted into their life, are a mirror of who they are. And I said to him, I said, well, what did she do? Oh, she's a hostess in a nightclub. Okay, and what, like, how did you meet her? Well, I was at one of the tables in the nightclub, and I was one of the big spenders, so they put her on my table.
So you're attracting from that space,
that's what you've attracted. So if you did some work on you to figure out why you need to wear diamonds all the time, where that comes from, that need for validation or whatever it is, you could drop the diamonds, you could stop buying the Dom Perignon in the nightclub, and you might end up in a different environment and attracting someone else for other reasons and values. And it was the same with me throughout my entire life. Until I did the work on me, I attracted all the wrong people.
Really?
Oh God, of course. Attracted all the wrong people that wanted me for all the wrong things. That wanted me for the mansion in the countryside, or the Range Rover, or the car.
The car you have now is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I don't actually, funnily enough, I don't actually have a driving license. So I have a driver.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So, but I can't drive. I lost my license. I thought, I don't need it anymore anyway. So, yeah, and so, yeah, I think about that a lot now, because I had to do the work to find the love I was looking for.
Right. You can't blame others. You gotta take responsibility and ownership. And that's why I said with you, it's like, for me, maybe there was things that I didn't like about these other relationships I was in, but I was the one choosing those relationships. I was the one staying after, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years when it wasn't working and things weren't shifting, and I continued to repeat the patterns that I was bringing into the relationship. So we all have choices, but when we blame others, it's really easy. But when we take responsibility, it's much harder. Women who are watching or listening at home that just want to find their match, their partner, what's the first step they can take to start getting out of the weeds of like failure after failure and start seeing some progress to greater potential matches? Or
a couple of things. I mean, firstly, there's a guy called John Kay who wrote a book called Obliquity. And the whole idea of the book was, obliquity is when you reach goals through indirect means. So if you take building a business, you're far more like, if your goal is to make money, instead of focusing on making money, focus on all the things that provide value to people.
Yeah.
Because the making money part will be the byproduct.
Right.
If you focus on, I need to get rich, I need to get rich, I need to get rich, you're probably not going to do the things that are going to get you rich.
Right.
Because what makes you financially wealthy? The relationships you take time to build, that often for a long time. You don't ask for anything, you don't even care to, you're just building, you know, the products that you create for no reason, then you just think that they're great, or that you think they have value, or whatever the service that you provide people. It's not, what's the quickest way for me to make money? Most people like that don't get rich.
Right.
In a relationship, there's all these things that build a relationship that really have that don't feel like they have anything to do with a relationship. Like, who would say knowing what you would do with the next 10 hours of your life, if it was free, is actually going to be a huge determinant of the health of your relationship? It's like one's over here and one's over here.
Right.
Shouldn't we be talking about how to have better sex?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be talking about how to communicate well with my partner? No, we're talking about you being an independently attractive, purpose-driven, independent person who is attractive just to watch from afar because of the life you lead. That's going to lead to a much better relationship. By the way, even that will lead to better sex.
Yeah.
Because your partner looks at you and is like, this
They're
person,
more attracted.
This is a person.
Yeah.
This isn't just an extension of me.
Yeah.
This is a person. So it's the indirect things that contribute. And so let's now take that to the single place. I'm single. What do I do next? Understand and study, and this is a big part of what I do in my work. So I'd encourage people to come check that out. Study the things that contribute to getting you a relationship that often have nothing to do with getting a relationship. The things you do with your spare time. If I want to learn yoga, do I do it on my own at home with a YouTube video? Learning yoga, by the way, on its own could be a good thing, just because it makes you more interesting, you have more to talk about, you feel confident in yourself, all of that. But okay, now let me do a more sociable version of that. Let me go and do a class where I might actually have the chance of meeting other people. Maybe they're not men, maybe they're other single women, but other single women are useful too. Another indirect variable, because you have more single friends or more fun friends, more charismatic friends who come knocking at your door going, hey, we're going out. Get out of your goddamn pajamas. We're going out, right? That person is going to be great for your love life.
Makes you more desirable, have more value.
And makes you leave the house.
Yeah.
Instead of staying in every weekend, makes you leave and go to places where people are. You know, the books you read, who would say the books you read have anything to do with your relationship? But they do on a date when you have shit to talk about.
Absolutely.
Right? So there's all these factors. Now, the reason I'm saying that, because of course there are direct factors, but look, my programs in my company, which by the way, people could go to howtogettheguy.com to go and find all of these. But the programs I have there are about very direct things like how to flirt,
strategies,
how to meet someone, how to do this, how to do that. But that's one piece of it, right? I encourage people to do all those indirect things. And then someone can't say, I'm just sick of going out. I give up. On what? On what?
Yeah.
Like someone said that to me in a seminar and said, I just feel like giving up. Tell me what
on yourself, on life?
What are you giving up on? I want to hear this. Tell me, what are you giving up on? Well, meeting people? Meeting people? Would you not meet people? If someone said you can never find the love of your life, that's off the table. Would you really stop meeting people? Yeah. Your need for a human interaction would disappear? I don't think so. You'd stop flirting with people? That's part of your character. Being flirtatious is a part of who we are at times.
Yeah.
So why would we lose that? Being sexual, would you really lose that? You're going to stop being sexual just because the end result isn't coming? I don't buy it. You'd stop doing hobbies. You'd stop getting out there. All the things that you have to get rid of to say, I'm done with relationships, are things that would absolutely erode your life, even if you take the relationship out of the equation.
Yeah.
So I think people have to, I understand, I know there is a terrific level of like dating burnout right now. And if you're out there feeling that right now, I urge you to think about this differently and to say, I don't have to constantly have it in my mind. I'm trying to meet someone, I'm trying to meet someone, I'm trying to meet someone. That game gets boring. And now when you go on a date and it doesn't go anywhere, you're a failure.
You're exhausted, yeah.
Oh, God, I'm done. See it as life. This isn't dating, it's life. It's meeting people. It's experiencing a great conversation, having a fun moment of interaction or flirtation, doing things you want to do anyway, doing hobbies you want to do anyway, because they'll enrich your experience of life. All of those things are really important. You don't have to call it dating. Just go live.
It's kind of like the analogy you said about running a business. If you're focused on, I need the relationship, whereas like, I need to make a certain amount of money, is getting the relationship, as opposed to, why don't I add value to the world and I'll attract the customers that will pay me and I'll make some money.
Because I need to make money focuses on things that make the short-term economics work.
Yeah.
And those things are generally not good for a business.
That's it.
Right? Same in love.
I want to ask you a couple final questions. This just came to me. I don't think I've ever asked anyone this, but since you're the love guy, I'm going to go there. Typically, I would ask the 3 truths question, which is, what are your 3 truths if it was the last day of your life? But I'm going to ask you a different spin on this. Imagine it's the last day of your life, and you've been in a committed, compatible, loving relationship with the woman of your dreams for the last 30, 40, 50, whatever years. And you've been a part of this journey and experience where you've built this incredible castle with all of its dents and wears and tears and love and magic and unicorns and everything. And it's your last day, and you've got the lights are going to go off, and you're not going to be on this world anymore. And your partner has one more day to live. Hypothetical.
So
you're 150 years old.
Your partner has one more day to live.
Your partner has one more day to live. Let's screw that. Your partner has a few more years to live. She's going to live a little longer than you. And you get to write 3 things, a love letter to your partner.
Right.
About the 3 things you loved about her the most. That brought you the most joy, the most incredible life from this relationship that you built together. What would you say or write to her are the 3 things you love the most about this woman that she would remember and go on for a few more years afterwards?
But that would be specific to a relationship, right? To a specific person?
To that relationship, yeah. To that person and the relationship. Imagine the relationship is everything you could ever dream of.
Got it.
You created the relationship of your dreams. It's the golden standard for the world. Wow. To look at a relationship and say, wow, they lived it. They did it, they loved, they went through it, they were vulnerable. It wasn't perfect, but man, this couple is the golden standard.
Man, okay.
What would you say are the 3 things? So I want you to go there because I believe you're going to create that in the relationship that you want to create. So what were the 3 things you would write a love letter to your wife on your last day about the 3 things you appreciated the most about the love you created together?
That maybe one would be you made me feel safe enough to be the best I could possibly be. You know, your love made me feel so secure, gave me such a platform to go and make an impact in the world on. That, you know, and don't get me wrong, I think we should have our internal security, but I felt so secure in the relationship that this relationship gave me the energy to go out there and do amazing things with that energy. So I made a bigger impact in the world because of the energy that your love gave me.
I'm getting chills already. This makes me emotional just thinking about it.
See if I have anywhere to go from there.
So safety, security.
that you made me feel like I wasn't alone in the world. And I don't just mean because we had each other. Mm-hmm. You can feel very lonely in a relationship, especially if you don't feel seen. Mm. But you find someone who sees you, you know, who really gets you. And all of a sudden you don't feel so alone in the world, because life is lonely. You can have tons of people around you, but there's a certain existential loneliness that many people feel in life that for moments or times evaporates when you feel a true connection with someone and you see each other. You go, wow, that to me is transcendent. So your ability to see me made me feel less alone in the world. Yeah. And I guess you were a role model for me.
Wow.
That through observing you and seeing the way you live and seeing the way you approach things, that there were so many times where I noticed you were better than me. And that taught me how to be better. It taught me how to, I grew because I saw the way you were.
Wow.
And that showed me, no matter where I thought I was, being around you showed me how wonderful people can be. And that made me want to be more wonderful. Mm. I guess those would be
That's
three.
a beautiful love letter. What's the letter you would write to yourself? You're 200 years old. It's the last day still. And you write a letter to your 32-year-old self. 32 now?
31, 32 in a couple of weeks.
You write a letter to your 32-year-old self and say, one piece of advice, looking back at what you'd say to yourself on how to become the best partner to create that magical relationship.
One thing I would say, looking at myself,
Sure.
saying, here's the
piece of
guide
advice.
to being...
Here's what you need to do to become that partner with that other person. Here's what you need to let go of. Here's what you need to step into. Here's where your ego needs to take a check.
I think, how many things do I get?
Give yourself a few.
Let's do a couple.
Yeah.
I think, I always loved just the idea of question everything.
Yeah.
Don't, that thing that you take for granted that you're right about, question everything, because it's just amazing to me the things I look back on now, and I no longer agree with what the 23-year-old version of me thought or the 25-year-old version of me thought. And I think understanding that, at least we're not very good at thinking about all the ways we might be wrong today. But we're really good at knowing the ways we were wrong before, right? And it's more, that's, if you think of a lot of self-improvement people, right? Gurus, leaders, whatever, people want to call themselves, they struggle, they're very good at telling stories of how they fucked up 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
But now
you should have seen me then. But not many people are good at talking about today.
Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of blind spot we most of us have in life, people in general. And I think if we can apply that thing of, oh yeah, God, I was so wrong about that 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I couldn't be more wrong about that. And I know that now. We should apply that to the next 5 years too.
Yeah.
And the next 10 years and say, there's a lot of shit I'm going to look back on 5 years from now and say, God, I did not know what I was talking about. That doesn't mean we should not trust ourselves on anything. I've heard it said, strong opinions loosely held.
Sure.
It doesn't mean we shouldn't be passionate about what we think now, but it does mean we should leave room for questioning. And to that end, I think I would tell myself to be kinder to myself over the course of my life for things that mistakes I'd made within relationships. I have definitely been the person, and even today have to wrestle with doing something that I know, God, that wasn't the best reaction to that. I wish I'd have handled that differently. I wish I'd have said a different thing. I wish I'd have phrased that differently. I wish I didn't say that. And then really, really beating myself up for it.
Yeah.
You know, not letting it go. Even after you've finished the argument, even after you get to the other
Holding
side of
on
it.
to it, yeah.
Continuing to berate yourself for it. And the shame about that is that it lacks humanity. It makes us forget that we're human and that we don't get everything right. And the only way we're gonna get more right is by making certain mistakes and learning from them.
It's true.
And it also stops us from being effective, because that energy that we're putting into berating ourselves is actually stopping us from doing the very things that would move everything forward from that mistake. It doesn't make relationships better. Mistakes actually make relationships better very often.
Because you learn, or hopefully you'll learn.
You learn. Those things, they really can transform, mistakes can transform relationships, but not if you sit there consistently dwelling on them. They make relationships better if you can improve from them and move on and be the thing you want to be now. So I think I would tell myself to be kinder to myself for mistakes.
Yeah.
To not obsess over things I should have said or done differently. Yeah. You know what, to that end, we should, halfway through this interview, I kept losing my train of thought. And probably you were going to edit that out to be kind to me.
I'm going to keep it in?
Let's keep it in.
All right.
Because, like...
Don't beat yourself up over it.
Give people the real shit.
Yeah.
Matthew Hussey's really eloquent. Oh, look at the way he could string a thought together. Well, I lost my train of thought 3 or 4 times. I don't know what happened. I couldn't think of the thing I was going to say next. I kept blanking. Okay. Show people that. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. If Matthew Hussey can be in the middle of an interview and just go completely blank and not know what the hell he was saying, then what am I worried about?
Yeah.
That's more interesting. And that's a real relationship.
Yeah.
A real relationship. That's the real stuff. That's the stuff we're not seeing when we see other people's relationships and everything.
The highlight reels.
Great and everything. No, let's if we want to change our world, forget the world for a moment, because it always seems a bit grandiose when we talk about changing the world, but changing our world. Let's bring in the real, because that genuinely changes things. You know what makes relationships better? True realness, vulnerability, people living their truth, people being more real, being more upfront, more direct. You know what makes you more attractive on a date? Being more real. Not going there. People worry about their hair and is this all right? Tell a real fucking story on the date.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna. You want to talk about deep attraction, not surface level bullshit. Surface level bullshit is in 2D on Instagram. Deep attraction, the kind of attraction that gets relationships, comes from real stories, real shared experiences. And if you do want to change other people's worlds, as you know, because you're so good at it, it's bring people the real.
When you're frustrated in the relationship, when you're fighting, you're arguing, you're not seeing eye to eye.
Yeah. Oh, great.
You think they're the problem.
Oh.
They're not understanding you. What should we ask ourselves?
Well, first of all, what am I actually frustrated about? Right. Let's start there. What am I frustrated about? What are the problems that I am having? Because so often we don't even communicate with we're not even clear, right? What the problems are. What are the areas of frustration? What are the problems? And then, before you go and try to solve it, you then have to ask, what is my contribution? Because everyone is making a contribution to the very problems that they can't stand in their relationship.
What is my contribution to this problem?
Correct.
Yeah.
What is my contribution to the problem? Because because it's so easy. It's easy to point the finger.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to point the finger back at ourselves. It's really hard. Mm-hmm. And so before you start doing this and you're not doing right and you're wrong and you're pointing the finger at whoever you're in the relationship with, you start to do this assessment and say, okay, what's really the problem? What have I not been communicative enough? Have I not set my expectations? Have I been too harsh? Like, you gotta really start doing the assessment of yourself and then bring that conversation.
And I think also to go even deeper is like, why is this triggering me?
Exactly.
Like, why is this a problem for me?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Maybe it's not the other person's doing something to me, but the trigger of it is something I haven't healed or addressed from the past.
Yes.
And that's when I'm triggered.
Yes.
But they're just being them. And, depending on the situation, but it's like, what's the root of this frustration for me?
Dude, this is so true. And this is why I talk about this in the book. Mm-hmm. I talk about how expectations are the secret software that run our life.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that we don't actually sometimes react to life events. We react to our expectations of events.
Right.
So if situations or people exceed our expectation, we're happy. If situations or people don't, we're devastated.
So what should we do? Have no expectations?
No, you can't do that, because expectations are like blood pressure. Too high, it's not good. Too low, it's not good. Right. Because expectation, we need motivation. Expectations are hope, right? So we do have to have hope, but we've got to set it properly.
Right.
Because so often when our expectation is not set, to your point that you made, we end up reacting based upon an unset expectation. Right. And so it's not that what the person's doing is wrong. It's that we have not set expectations for ourselves. We haven't identified what those triggers are. We haven't identified, oh, wait a minute. Wait a second. They're not the problem. It's how I'm looking at it is the problem. Mm-hmm. So in order to set expectations, I have every person that reads the book ask these two questions. One, is it realistic or unrealistic? How do you know? It comes down to one word. This is how you determine if your expectation is realistic or unrealistic. Control.
What do you mean? Are you trying to be in control, or?
If it's within your control to do it, you can expect it. It's a realistic expectation. If it's out of your control, you cannot expect it. So I'll give two examples. Your podcast is amazing. It's incredible. One of the most dynamic podcasts in the world.
Thank you.
No matter how hard you try, you cannot force somebody to go listen to it.
No,
can't.
I can hope.
Hope.
I can have a range of what I think people listen to.
Yes, I can have a target. I can have a goal. But if you put an expectation of like, hey, it's got to be 1 million by next month.
Right.
I would argue that's unrealistic because it's out of your control.
Right.
What's in your control? I want to produce the best podcasts with the best conversations and the best guests with the best marketing and the best publicity. All in your control, realistic to expect. Now, let's apply that to people. You're in a relationship. I want this person to love me in a certain way. I want this person to, have this amount of sex. I want this person to go work out. I want this person to go eat. I want this person.
Can't control that.
You can't control it.
You can communicate it. You can set up the structure for it.
But you can't control it.
Yeah.
And so often, our expectations with others are unset. Why? Because we're trying to control what we don't. You and I only control ourselves and the remote, wherever the remote, that's it.
Yeah.
I can't control anybody else, ever. And too often, we spend so much energy trying to get someone to behave and live in the way that we want.
Yeah.
Instead of behaving in the way that we want, right? Living the way that we want. And if we live the way that we want, then whoever we're in the relationship with, either that is going to compel them to say, hey, you know what? I like what you're doing. And then you say, hey, I like what you're doing. So let's do that together.
Right.
Or it won't. But when we try to get somebody to be what we want them to be and do what we want them to do, that's called manipulation.
What happens when we are in a relation, when we are trying to control or manipulate someone else in an intimate relationship, or they're doing that to us? What happens?
What happens is love goes down. Mm-hmm. Fear rises. Here's what I mean by that. The fear of, if I don't do this, they're going to leave. Mm-hmm. So that person, everyone has different degrees of self-determination. And so in a relationship, when you've fallen in love and you really care about somebody and they're asking you to do something or be something, that could be a very compelling thing to do, even when it's not who you are. And so the fear of, if I don't, will they leave? Okay, so then it becomes a performance-based relationship.
It's not good.
It's not good. I'm doing this because I don't want them to go, but I know it doesn't bring me joy. Mm-hmm. So it no longer is love leading the way.
It's fear.
It's fear. It's fear. And I, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do this because this is what they want, and I'm gonna become this. But every moment that I do it, and it's not in my heart, is a moment that my soul gets crushed.
Oh.
Every single moment.
This is my life. This is my life up until now, where, not all the time, but I could see a pattern in my past relationships where I would just do things to make the other person happy, even though I didn't want to do them, because they were angry or upset or frustrated or whatever. They had some expectation. And I would sense like, man, the love is going down a little bit. But when I took responsibility and accountability, I was like, but it's not their fault. I'm the one choosing to do these things because I'm afraid that they're going to be angry at me, or that they're going to leave, or they're not going to love me. So it's my responsibility to stand in my truth in those tough, challenging moments when someone's like, you don't support me, you're not doing whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
It's tough to do that.
Oh.
We're triggered, it's challenging, but I think if someone's gonna leave you by you standing in your truth and being frustrated by you constantly, then that's maybe not the right fit for you.
Well, not only is it potentially not the right fit, you gotta think about something. You gotta put yourself at the end of your life. And you gotta say.
You posted a quote on Instagram recently about this.
Yes.
I saw it.
That's a good quote.
One of the regrets. one of the regrets of the dying.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that quote. Yeah. And I use that as a prompt.
Yes.
To get people to think about in your life. But if you do that, so let's say in that dynamic, you become what they want you to be, even though it's not who you really are. Mm-hmm. You get to the end of your life, and can you live with doing what was expected but never what was destined? Can you live?
Ooh, man.
With doing what was expected, but never what was destined? And if the answer to that question is no, then you gotta make some changes now.
So tough.
It is.
Why does love trap us?
Because
maybe, I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to say the world does this, but I sense that a lot of other people do this. When we feel the sense of chemistry and connection and intimacy and vulnerability and love, whether it's real or not, we sense that feeling of intimacy with someone else. Why does that trap us? And we stay in these things, in general, I'm not speaking for everyone, but we tend to stay in these things much longer than we should. Like, you'll hear people say, I knew I should have got a divorce 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like they break up with a divorce. I always ask them, when did you know that you weren't supposed to be with this person? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the day I got married, right? You hear these things and you're like, well, why do we stay?
Right.
Why is this so hard for us, this trap of love?
Right.
Why don't we get out of it sooner?
Right. I mean, there's so many reasons. The reason that comes to mind is worth, self-worth.
We don't believe we're worth, or we're afraid we won't find something as good, or what do you mean?
All of it. What I mean is that it can take a while for you to come into a revelation of what you're worth, and that you are worthy to be happy and pursue happiness on your terms, and come to the revelation that, this dynamic is no longer, making that contribution to my life. And
not that they're bad and wrong.
There you go. Right.
Not that it's all their fault.
There you go.
It just wasn't the right fit.
And for me, when you're in that situation, it can take a long time for you to get to the place where you feel enough worth, where you're ready to say, you know what, I'm going to endure the fear, I'm going to endure the challenges to make that kind of move. So when you talk about love, love cuts to the core of our worth because we all need it.
Man.
And when I say love, we all need love. I don't mean just romantic love. I'm just saying we all need to love and be loved. I think it's just part of our humanity. It's just part of how we were created. It's part of our divinity, right? God is love. God is in us. We love, right? And we serve. And so part of that love is, oh man, so much of it is focused on giving. Because think about how we're socialized, right? Oh, you do the right thing. Oh, mommy, daddy loves you. Oh, I want to, but it's not like, do you love you? Do you know you're worthy? Do you know that you are worth it? Do you love who looks back at you in the mirror? Do you love who looks back at you when you take the selfie? Because at the end of the day, love becomes complicated because we never actually get there with our worth and who we really are. And so we go into the relationship and we haven't really done the work. We kind of feel worthy. We don't quite feel loved, and we bring all of that. That's a recipe for this, And here's the thing, it's okay, right? Love is like a rocky sea, right? You know what I mean? We're on the boat, man, it's gonna be rocky. That's okay. Because we all have our stuff. So it's not about finding somebody who don't have stuff. You want to find somebody who can help you with your stuff. Who's willing to help you with your stuff. So that as you bring things that are difficult, they're like, hey, it's cool, let's work this through. But you both find a healthy way to do it. But one of the reasons why I think people stay in things is because of worth. And you need time to get to a place, and some people never get there, where you realize what you're worth. Because at the end of the day, I go back to happiness. It's like, and peace and joy. We only live this life once. I'm a Christian. I believe in heaven. I believe in that. But I also believe that this earth, this life, this particular existence, we only get it once. So when you really put that in the broad scheme of things, you think, okay, am I living right now according to my choice?
Yes.
Am I doing the things that bring me joy, bring me peace? Or am I allowing things in my life that are working against it, no matter what they are? It could be a relationship, it could be a job, it could be a living environment, whatever it is. I have to take control and do this assessment and then make the decision, okay, from a relationship standpoint, if my relationship isn't everything I wanted, okay, what do I need to do to fix it? But first I gotta fix me. And I gotta work on me. And I gotta love me. And as I love me, it will then help me learn how to love others and make the assessment. Okay, you know what? Maybe this person is gonna be able to walk with me and I walk with them. Great. Maybe not. But let me not just point the finger and do the work. The other thing I want to hit is when you talk about setting expectations, that second part of setting expectations is communication, right? Is it spoken or unspoken? And we talked about this earlier. You've got to actually ask the question. So even in this situation, when you talk about a difficult relationship, this scenario, instead of making the assumption, whatever your area of frustration is, sit down and frame it as a question. You know what? I was expecting that, in this relationship that, we would sit down and eat every night at 7:00.
Right, because this is what we did with my
family.
Right. So I just assumed.
So I just assumed.
You would do the same thing.
Is that your expectation? Is that something I can expect from you? And let them say yes or no. Oh, okay, so for you, you don't ever expect to be home at 7.
You're going out to dinner.
You're going out to dinner, right? Oh, okay, got it. Okay. All right, okay, great. Wow, now we're actually having a real adult conversation, right? We're having an adult conversation because we're taking accountability and we're communicating. And so when it comes to setting expectations in any area of life, you got to know, is it realistic or unrealistic vis-a-vis control? And you got to ask, is it spoken or unspoken vis-a-vis communication? And when we start to do these tools, it does free us up. Because the reason why I wanted to write Live Free is because so often we're not. And when I say live free, what I mean is that when you and I live free, when anyone lives free, it means they are not under the mental, physical, or emotional control of anyone or anything. That's what living free is. Living free means, and so when we get into a situation and we start to feel like, ooh, this person is starting to feel like this person is making me mad or contributing to my discontent, then I would say to that person, okay, pause for a minute, pause for a second. It's super easy just to turn all your attention to what they're not doing, right? No. how do you want to feel in the situation? What will give you more power in the situation? What will give you more peace? Okay, you know what? I'm identifying that there are some things in my relationship that are incompatible.
Yes.
I am going to spend some time observing what those things are and identifying if there are certain things I can live with and what I can't.
Right. And communicating about
and
them.
Communicating those areas that I can't to see if it's possible we can set our expectations together.
The biggest challenge you'll find is when you communicate those things out of expectation or anger or frustration, the other person's probably not going to be able to receive it. If you're already making someone wrong for what they're doing or not doing, it's very challenging to have an adult conversation.
Bro,
and this is
I've been there before.
I've done that, and I've received it.
Yes.
And it's challenging to do, but when you come from a place of 100% responsibility, accountability, and figuring, why is this triggering me? Why is this really affecting me?
Dude.
Then you can come from a calmer place of like, okay, I didn't like this, but I don't need to make you wrong for this in this moment, because we can talk about it, come up with an agreement that then moving forward, we can either live up to or not. And then we can make a decision if this frustrates me.
Correct. I mean,
challenging.
It's challenging, but it's good work. And for me, you you talk about flaws, like that's an area that I have been, outside of identifying what my needs are and being okay to admit those needs. One of the flaws, man, is that, I have a really strong sense of right and wrong.
And if someone's not doing that,
like, according to me,
that's wrong.
Right. So if some may have dude, I'm like, that's wrong. So when Megan and I have had moments of disagreement, I have at times mishandled it completely. Because I have in my mind made the decision that on that particular thing that she may have done that I didn't like, she's wrong.
Yeah. For you.
For me.
Right.
But no. For me came as I evolved and as I grew. Initially, it was like, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Period. Wrong in the world. Not just wrong for divine. Wrong in the world. So here's the problem with that. The problem is when I make the decision and judge her action as wrong, the moment I bring it up in a way of attack. Yeah. And anyone, when they feel attacked, they're gonna get defensive.
You can't do that in a relationship.
You can't do it, but it happens all the time.
It does, man.
And dude, what would happen is I would, get on my self-righteous, soapbox.
I can't believe we did this.
There you go. There you go.
What were you thinking?
There you go. Judgment.
What's she gonna say? Oh, you're right, Devon. I'm a bad person. Right. Everything you say is truth.
Right. Yeah. No, dude, listen. I learned the hard way. What that did was it pushed her further away.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the point of what I was bringing up, whatever we were dealing with, didn't have merit. Didn't mean that. It just meant that the way I went about it was wrong.
Right.
And my intent was not being realized because I came at it from judgment and I'm right and you're wrong and da-da-da-da. So as I bumped my head, I realized, oh, got it. The way I see the world is the way I see the world.
Yeah.
It's not exactly how the world may be. So when I use how I see the world as the way that she has to see the world, I am the one with the problem.
Yeah.
Because I've got to understand and take into account the two different perspectives.
Right.
So what I had to learn to do is express it from here. My love.
Yeah.
When this happened, here's how it made me feel. Here's was my takeaway. Is that the right way to think about it? So instead of doing like this, I had to do like this. Oh yeah, when you said that, I felt this way about that. How can we, and that approach, bro, is what then brings the communication.
Right. Then she wants to be contributing in a more supportive way.
And also just talk it through, right? Because it's not a pointing the finger. I'm not pointing the finger at her. She's not pointing the finger at me. We're actually talking about it. So she'll say, hey, there's certain things that you do that make me feel this way. I was like, oh, okay. Now, here's another hard truth. There's some situations I'm like, I'm not responsible for those feelings.
Right. Doesn't mean you have to change who you are.
No, baby, I love you. I understand what you're saying. And I love you, period. I understand you feel a certain way about certain things. That's not my responsibility. Right? So the same way that I feel about certain things, you're like, hey, that's not my responsibility, right?
Yeah.
I still got to go do my work. I still have to go on my journey. And I still have to continue to get to that place of peace and healing and contentment inside the journey, if that makes sense.
On a scale of 1 to 10
Yeah.
of jealousy, 10 being extremely jealous human being, 1 being not jealous at all, where would you say you lie?
In life or like relationship?
In relationship.
Oh man, I'm not jealous. I'm like, it's like a 1 for me.
Did you ever used to be jealous in relationships?
Never. And I'll tell you why.
Tell me.
Because I love me, okay?
Great.
So I'm like, yo, listen, I ain't jealous of no other dude. I'm not. And the reality is, if any woman that I was with found, for whatever, more comfort or was like, hey, I want to go over there and experience that person, God bless you. Mm-hmm. God bless you.
We're not the right fit then.
Not the right fit.
Yeah.
And if I was a jealous person, I couldn't be married to my wife. My wife is one of the most successful. I mean, first of all, she's beautiful, but she's also one of the most successful, women, actors in Hollywood. She's an icon. She's known around the world. I mean,
she got men.
She's got men. I mean, literally. And men all around the world, desire her and would probably do anything for her. And that's who she was before we got married. So if I was the jealous type,
work.
I couldn't. I'd be miserable.
Miserable.
Because right now she's in, New York on a TV show. I'm here in LA.
And you gotta have trust.
And you gotta have trust, right? So if I'm a jealous man,
What is jealousy saying about us?
Insecurity, massive insecurity. I don't feel safe with me, so I don't feel safe with you.
What do you mean I don't feel safe with me?
Meaning, if I am secure with who I am and I feel good being alone, right? I feel safe in my isolation. I feel safe in my loneliness or periods of time when I'm by myself. Then I trust that you're going to feel safe and you're going to honor whatever needs to happen. But if I don't feel safe, like I don't really like being alone much and I don't really like being by myself, then you don't feel, no, what are you doing? What's the problem? What's happening? So that insecurity and not feeling safe with self, you transfer onto the other person. Because if you're content with your personal time, you tend to be more content when others have personal time independent of you.
You're not worried.
You're not worried. And then also one of the things that could happen is that you got burned in the past. Someone did you wrong, they violated your trust, and so fear has crept in, and so that fear is driving your jealousy.
Yes.
I'm afraid that what happened before is going to happen again. And so as a result, I'm transferring that previous pain onto my present situation. And that's always a recipe for disaster, right? Because the person you're dating is not the person you dated.
You can't expect them to repeat the same thing.
Exactly. Now, but here's the other thing. Because life is a mirror, right? Yeah. And whatever we put out, we get back. If you keep putting that out, if you put it out on the last situation, this person you're dating may not be a cheater at all. But if you don't trust them and you keep getting mad at them.
You're going to push them away, they're going to want to cheat.
It's like, again, everyone still has to be the keeper.
Not saying it's okay, yeah.
Right, but that energy that you're putting out is sometimes the energy you get back even from somebody who may not be predisposed to do those sort of things.
Yeah. Not saying it's your fault that someone breaks their integrity.
Correct.
But you might have influenced it.
Correct.
In a way.
Correct. And so the person that's jealous has to, 1, get control of that security, and 2, get control of that fear. And also say, you know what? Listen, if that person I'm dating is foolish enough to step out on me,
that's on them.
That is on them.
Why are we lying to ourselves so much?
Because it is shameful. And a lot of times we hate that we got there.
We hate ourselves.
We hate ourselves that we got there. Yeah. How in the world did I get to this place? How do I need these pills to go to sleep or to wake up? How in the world do I have to keep kissing they butt to still work at this job? Like, this is not me. This is not who I want. And so because we have disdain for who we have become, it's like if we acknowledge it, that reinforces that we're actually there. And maybe we can't live with that. And so it's this vicious cycle of faking to make it. And that's why a lot of people say you gotta fake it till you make it. I'm like, no.
Face it.
Face it so you can make it. Be real so that you can actually move on to there. And a lot of people are delaying the inevitable. You can't hold up a facade forever.
No, it's gonna crumble.
At some point, it's gonna crumble. The sad thing is, a lot of time it crumbles when it has more people to damage.
Ooh.
A lot of time
Almost
it crumbles.
always, right?
Yeah, a lot of time it crumbles. Now I have 3 children and they're in relationships, and now everything's dependent on me, and I've built this empire of podcasting or business or fitness, and now I'm in this space and place that if I'm honest, it'll cost too much. May I submit to you, if you're not honest, it's gonna cost you too much. Yeah, I'm already on one, Lewis. Let me stop.
So how have you had to heal in the last 10 years your relationship from stuff that happens every year, or is it only stuff from 10 years ago that you guys have to work on?
Bro, you know the answer to this question, man. I'm a flawed man.
Yeah.
My wife is a flawed woman. We serve an amazing God. We're people of faith, but He knew we were gonna mess up. And there was room in the plan for imperfection. Like, that's what I always tell people, because I'm a pastor and people know I'm a person of faith, and they think I'm just gonna throw the Bible at them all the time. And what I tell them, I was like, no. Just first look at my life. Like, I've experienced amazing grace. And now I have to extend amazing grace, and I have to receive amazing grace, because I'm still gonna mess up. My wife had to forgive me for something before I came up here. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a daily walk. But that's why I tell everybody the beautiful thing about Journey, if you can get this stuck in your brain and in your heart, really, is that this life is about progression, not perfection. I know culture sells us perfection. I know your parents may have wanted perfection from you. I know you've probably required perfection of yourself, but that is the wrong metric. This is about progression. How much did you move forward from yesterday to today? Or how much did you move past? I know you wanted to cuss them out last week, but you only said one cuss word this week. You know what I'm saying? Or last year, it was about being successful. You didn't take any breaks. But this year, you actually took a few days and had soul care and self-care and spiritual enlightenment and getting back in your place of faith. Like, how did you progress? And I think for me, in all of my relationships, especially the one with my wife, the one that I'm in covenant with, I have to know that I'm gonna need grace because I'm still figuring it out.
Right.
Like, there's anybody on earth that says they're a relationship expert are liars. Nobody knows everything about all relationships. We're just trying to share from our journey and truth that we've experienced. And I know for me that in the journey that I'm in right now, I make a lot less mistakes than I made 10 years ago.
Right.
Because I've progressed. But am I gonna make more mistakes the next 10 minutes? Probably, you know what I'm saying? And so it is daily. And yeah, there's tons of healing that has to happen from every lie, from every deception, from every wrong word that was spoken. I tell people this because a relationship is all about trust. And this is the thing that people don't really factor in. You can spend decades, years, months building trust, but this is the truth. Trust is lost in buckets, but gained back in drops.
Yeah.
So you can have an entire 5-gallon bucket of trust built up.
Yeah.
But one thing that you never said you would do, you do, and the whole bucket goes out.
Gone.
And now you have to come back in every day.
Drop by drop.
Drop by drop. You don't get a fountain of trust built back up. And that's where most relationships fail, is because they lost the trust and they were not diligent enough to build it back up.
Because it takes a lot of hard work.
But the problem is you have history with that person, and a lot of times they would rather start over with somebody else to do the same exact thing. Instead of going back and, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, no, didn't we talk about this? Oh, come on. But no, this is valuable. And I'm the one who tipped this thing over. And so I'm going to be the one to be consistent enough or disciplined enough to put those drops back in.
What's been the biggest lesson for you in the last 10 years of putting drops back in over a decade plus with your wife? What's the lesson you've learned as a human being through that discipline, through that daily drop?
Yeah.
After breaking trust, you know, back in the past.
Yeah. Trust is way more valuable than money. Trust is way more valuable than connection. Trust is way more valuable. There's a book that I encourage everybody to read. It's called The Speed of Trust. And it basically, the premise is that where there's trust, everything takes less energy. Yeah. It takes less money, and it has better results. But where there's no trust, it takes more energy, it takes more money, and there are minimal results.
Yeah.
And you can apply this to business, relationships, you can apply it to your family. And I think our culture is one that doesn't trust. You prove to me. And at the moment that we don't go into situations with trust, there's this disconnection that doesn't allow people like the vibe's not right or all these different sayings. I think for me, I've learned that trust is probably a higher commodity than anything else. My greatest relationship, me and my wife, Natalie, don't have to be doing anything, but when I'm in a bed in a hotel with a woman that I fully trust, it's more satisfying than any platform I've ever been on.
Wow.
It's more euphoric. It's more when I can say something and somebody believes me and I don't have to prove it to them, but they know what I'm saying is real.
That's an amazing feeling.
Oh, what are you talking about? Name the places you get that. Name the places you got to make presentations to make people you pay believe you. Come on, let's be honest. Like, because there's still not full trust there. But when you put in so much trust that person, your yes is a yes and your no is a no,
and they fully
trust what you say. Yeah. When I told my wife that I was gonna take care of her and I would never hurt her again, and to be able to now 10 years removed, we just did a 10-year vow renewal, and we went out to this sand desert, and now it was me and our 3 kids, and we're sitting there and glass runway, it's on YouTube, and we just it was just the most beautiful thing to look into her eyes and say the words unscripted that came from my heart, and to look in her and knew they were hitting her heart and she fully trusted what I said. You can't tell me nothing. Like, nobody, there's no feeling like that. And the sad truth, Louis, is most people will never feel that. They will never know what it is to have another human being with your flaws, with knowing the worst about you. I can't hide from my wife. She knows everything that I do. She knows when I do take showers and when I don't take showers. She knows when I leave the toilet seat up or when I put it down. She knows, so in the most vulnerable place, she knows when I do my workout and when I don't. I can't hide from her. I can hide from people on social media. Right. I can hide from people that I work with, but from her, I'm vulnerable. And to know when I speak, she trusts it. It was well worth everything that I had to do.
And what happens if you are 100% in integrity with your word?
Yeah.
You're following through, you're being honest, you're showing up, you're delivering in a relationship, but the person doesn't trust you.
Yeah.
After years.
Yeah.
And you're like, you have access to my phone.
Yeah,
you
it's
have
real.
My passwords. You know where I'm at 24/7.
Yeah.
And you still don't trust me. Is that still my responsibility, or is that the other partner's work they get to do?
So the beautiful thing about the story that I'm telling you from my side.
Yeah.
But if you were to talk to my wife right now, there were things she had to do on her own during this whole process, or she wouldn't have made it. She wasn't sitting there like, prove to me that you were. No, there was self-discovery she was going on. Do I want to stay in this relationship? Is this worth it? What do I bring? What do I have? What am I worth? And that's why I tell people all the time, no matter if you're a couple, you're still single. Even though you're in a relationship, you still have to be single enough to continue to improve. A lot of people stop improving once they get in a relationship.
I got it. What else do I need to do?
I made it and all that other stuff. But when you are in a relationship, there are still 2 very single people that need to work on their communication, work on their insecurities, work on their ability to communicate, and if you stop developing your singleness in marriage or in relationship, that relationship is headed for at one point for somebody to be on another level and be like, this is not what we signed up for.
Right.
Hey, I thought we were partners. I thought we were doing this together. I thought we were growing and going towards this together. And that's why I encourage people all the time, what have you brought to the relationship lately? What skills have you improved in? What has your emotional intelligence gone to another level? Has your spiritual awareness gone to another level? Has your faith gone to another level? Have you learned a new language? So when we go on our vacation 2 years from now, we don't get swindled at what are you bringing to the relationship? And I just would encourage every couple not to focus on, because when I say this, a lot of times they'll be like, see, you ain't brought nothing to the relationship in 3 years, Kathy. Hold on 1 second. No, ask yourself, what have you brought to the relationship?
Right.
And if you both are asking yourself, that's part of the reason we wrote that this book, Taking Your Relationship from Good to Great, because it allows people to evaluate where they're at spiritually, emotionally, and then be able to say, what do I need to change? How do I need to do this? And that's the only way that you can go from good to great in any relationship.
Yeah. My friend Matthew Hussey talks about this. He talks about relationships for women, on how to really attract the right man in their life, the right partner. And he said to me one time, if you want to find a great partner, make a list of all the things you want from them and then become that list yourself. And whatever you want in someone else, you need to become that first and really add that value to them as well. And it's kind of like what I'm hearing you say is, okay, after a year, 2, 5, 10 years, you have to keep becoming that list yourself to keep that partner excited or engaged and trustworthy and connected. And both parties have to be working on that list. Is that right?
Now, I have a little different perspective on the list because sometimes the list limits you.
Ooh, tell me more.
So I tell people a lot of time, because specifically a lot of my sisters, a lot of, they make lists. Now they got lists. He got to be 6'5", he's got to have this amount of money.
But
he's
are they becoming the things that they want from the qualities, not the
things.
The qualities.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes I do believe that there are certain things that you need to be able to lay out and really ask yourself, am I becoming those things? I don't think, though, the package always comes the way you think it's going to come.
True.
And so a lot of times,
like 6'5", shredded,
and all kinds of things, even some of the qualities, because the thing is, I tell people this, you write down what you want. I believe God factors in with your mate what you need to.
That's true.
See, the problem is, if you ask Natalie, I'm not what she wanted.
What did she want?
She wanted some big Hispanic model for lotion. She wanted somebody, you know what I'm saying? The typical, beautiful, but what she needed was me. And when you look, a lot of people make these lists at the beginning of their list, but somebody needs to start a podcast interviewing couples who actually made it.
Right.
So you maybe need to do a series of relationships who lasted for 40 plus years.
That thrived.
Not
that stayed together and resented each other.
And not that we're business partners.
Right.
That thrived. Because if you ask a lot of them, which I did a lot of research writing Relationship Goals, the book, when you ask them, most of them did not get what they wanted on their list. They got what they found out they needed.
Ooh.
And honestly, the things that I need, I don't never write down on the list because I need somebody to help encourage me when I want to go have ice cream instead of stick to my diet. I don't write that down on the list. I just write down I want somebody supportive. Well, in my mind, when I'm writing that down on the list, I'm thinking support me in whatever I'm feeling at that moment. Maybe not support me in what I've decided in a different moment. And I need that, but it's not necessarily that I want it. And I found out that a lot of times when you rip up the list and start becoming the best version of you that you can be, you will then begin to see that I am now worthy and worth being with somebody who's worthy and worth being with.
Right.
And you don't settle for a lot less. And that's why I called it a relationship goal. I know it's a popular term in culture. But I said people aren't doing good at relationship is because they don't have aim. They're not aiming at a goal that actually is going to produce the greatest end for them. And so that's my whole thought about it. I do believe you got to become your best version, your best self. But then when you do that, a lot of times it creates an entitlement in people that they will dismiss the right thing because of the wrong package.
And what happens if you continue to be your best version year after year and the other person's not willing to go on that journey?
Yeah.
Is it till death do we part, even if they're constantly pulling you down and saying, I'm not going to work on myself.
Yeah.
You do all the work. I don't trust you, even if you're 100% honest.
Yeah.
Is it... is that
now, there's always provision in a relationship, especially when there's infidelity and there's different things that have happened that this may be an unhealthy situation that we can't progress in. I honestly feel, though, a lot of people give up too soon on that.
Yeah.
Nothing good ever comes out of the easy way. There is nothing great, I'll say great, that comes out of easy. if it's gonna be great, there's gotta be some work that goes into it.
Some pain.
There's gotta be some pain. There's gotta be discomfort. There's gotta be, do I gotta do this again? Are we still talking about this? And I really do believe in our society today that we rush into things because we know how easy we can get out of them. Instead of taking the time. That's honestly why I've written books and done series and millions of people have watched it, because I'm trying to convince people like, hey, like, take this seriously. It's not just like, oh, we met at the bar, we hooked up, we lived together, now we should make a life together. And I'm not saying that people haven't been in relationships that have worked like that. I'm just saying that if you had to take a test to get a driver's license and be able to drive legally in your state, it's easier to get in a relationship with somebody, build a marriage, have kids that are going to affect the rest of us with no actual preparation.
No training.
No required reading, no counseling, no honesty. Like, hey, just before we get married, let me tell you how much debt I'm in. Hey, just before we get married, let me tell you that your friend and that friend and that friend, I slept with all of them. Just before, there's no requirements. And that's why I'm saying if we don't put that in and build that into the relationships we want, how can we expect? It's gambling. It's like, maybe this will work or maybe it won't. I think we can be more intentional on setting a real goal. And I believe those goals need to be put on principles that have lasted in faith, that can last for a long time, man.
What are the main principles that every relationship should be founded upon?
Bro, I wrote a whole book about it. I'm gonna give you three of them.
Give me three.
Let me give you three of them. The first thing has to be transparency.
Yeah. About everything.
Everything.
Like, I had this thought.
Yeah.
I looked at this. I did any idea.
So I'll say this, you have to be wise. Yes. Because you have to, depending on the layer of relationship you're in right now. If you just meet somebody today and you don't even know if you want to be with them, I don't think it's wise that you tell them everything. But I do believe that there's a difference between transparency and honesty. And many people have adopted the thought process and the philosophy of being honest, but not transparent. Honesty is when you ask me, I'll tell you the truth.
But until then, I'm hiding something.
Yes. And a lot of times, most of us don't get asked the questions that we need to answer.
Because those questions are scary to ask.
Oh my gosh. They're scary to ask.
And you don't want to know the answers.
And you don't want to know a lot of times. And then it automatically, if the person is not emotionally secure enough, then you're like, what, you don't trust me? Like, there's so many different things that are there. And that's why I always ascribe to the philosophy of being transparent. You don't have to ask me. I'm going to offer it up. I'm going to tell you, hey, this, when you talk to that guy at the restaurant, that made me feel some type of way. And it made me really start thinking about the insecurities of my last relationship and why we broke up. And I'm not asking you to solve it at this moment, but I'm letting you know how that made me feel. And I'm just going to process with that. There's no question that your mate could have asked to get that response that genuinely. Because then they'll say something like this: are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Like, and the truth is, no, you're not, but I don't emotionally know how to let you know that honestly, it wasn't really what you did, it's what I've been through.
Yes.
That triggered something in me, and now I'm insecure about what I know I have, but it's because of what happened to me. Like,
sure.
But that takes being transparent, and what I found is when I'm transparent, it honestly provides more empathy from the other person. To be able to, man, I'm sorry you felt that way. Well, what can I do? And like that then is deepening that relationship more than it is creating a wedge between it. So I would say, number one, transparency has to be the top thing that you have in a relationship.
All right, that's number one.
I think that you need to have common faith goals. I think for me, a lot of things that I found in relationship is a lot of people like each other, but what their faith is founded on are two totally different things. And I think you should be equally yoked or equally compatible in the things that you believe. Yeah. And when you do that, it's easier to have conversations about how to raise children, finances. It's easier to be able to go to, for me and my wife, we're Christians that believe in the Bible Bible. And so there are certain things that we disagree on, and then we can go to the Bible and we're like, okay, but this is something that we believe together. Let's wrestle through this. Let's work through this. How does that make you feel? Let's ask somebody. There's so many problems that have been solved because we believe the same things foundationally in our faith. And I'm encouraging people a lot of times that when you do that, it creates a foundation that moves past emotions. A lot of times that
triggers.
It's just like, well, I can't get it and I can't get it. But then when you go to certain things, love is patient. Love is kind. Love keeps no record of wrong. Dang, 1 Corinthians 13 is jacking me up right now. Love offers forgiveness. Love is long suffering. Like these are words that we have adopted from a book that we believe has truth in it and principles to live by. And because we're on the same level in that faith, it corrects us sometimes when we don't want to be corrected. And that's where I tell people the Bible is one of the only books you can read that when you read it, it reads you. Like, and for us, that has helped us. And so transparency, having strong faith foundations. And then the third thing that I would say is fun. If you cannot have fun with the person that you're in relationship with, good luck. Like, because there's certain things.
Life is hard.
It is hard. There will be trouble. It's promised. But if you can find somebody to look at in the darkest part of the valley
and laugh
with them. It happened to me and Natalie on the plane yesterday. I told you before, we brought 2 of our daughters with us, and they're 7 and 3 years old, and we're on a plane from Tulsa to LA, 3.5 hours. You can imagine all the fruit snacks and the iPads and all of the different things, crying, just the whole nine. And my wife is pregnant right now, so put that on top of it. So, and she's trying to eat, and I'm sitting in the chair next to her, and something drops off of her plate, and I can see
the
breakdown just right up ahead like a movie. And I just look at her and I just start laughing, and she sees me, and she breaks out, and for 20 minutes
laughing.
We are dying on the plane, not because everything's good, because we have somebody to be through and go through everything with us. And that joy, I mean, literally we got off the plane and all the other stuff. She said, I haven't laughed like that in so long. And she was just kept laughing about it. And those are the moments that I found. Like I told you a little bit before, but our son, MJ, he's 5. He was diagnosed with autism. And this has been the greatest emotional faith journey that we've been on. He's 5 years old, still nonverbal. I'm the guy of faith. I lead a church. I'm a pastor. I believe. And in my home, there's a situation that has not changed yet. And it's challenged everything. The one thing that has gotten us through, or excuse me, the 3 things that have gotten us through are the 3 things I just gave you. Transparency, our faith foundation being the same, and being fun. I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you on my way to a 4th child after my wife battling depression, me challenging my calling, trying to figure out why is this happening at the moment where everything great in my life is happening. And it's those 3 things. Being transparent about how I felt and my emotions, and her being transparent about how she felt and her emotions, and having our faith anchored to something that was stronger than us, and us having fun. That I told you before we came in here, I am having the most fun in relationship. I'm not faking. This is authentic. This is the joy that I have to be, because we have decided that there's some principles we have to live by that most people aren't going to show you in reality television. Most people aren't going to give you in a blog or a tabloid.
So I started creating processes for myself to get through the long nights when I couldn't sleep.
What's a process look like?
One of them was I created a little meditation for myself to listen to over and over. Another one is I wrote a letter to myself from my inner mother telling me